created controller. Now, after creating controller, in this video, we will see the business logic inside the controller. So there will be two methods, index and store method. Index method will be responsible for pulling the data from the student class or from the books class. Okay, and storing it would be store method would be helpful to store the data in our book class, and that will return as a JSON response. So this will be the include in our code, and it will return books added. And if you will the include the show method with the for the search parameter, and in the update method it will write. Okay. So in this way, we will write it our in our destroy method will be deleting the destroy method. So after creating the controller, now we will go to our Visual Studio code, and here we will write the business logic. So for here, first we have to as we have created the controller called book controller. So here you can see the book controller. Now book controller, in that way we can write the method. So for this we will write our method, say public index function index. Okay, so let's write it as public function. So this would be our index page through which our book method will be called. So for here we will be declaring a variable called books. Okay. So after declaring this variable, we would be doing it all method. Okay. So this is books all method we have defined. Now we have to declare it as a JSON response. We have to return this method in a form of JSON response. So what would be the code? For this, we will write the JSON code for evaluating our JSON response. And in the same way, we will in that JSON code we will write, sorry, will be there. And in that JSON method, we will write our book class, or not our book class, but our variable of the book class. So this is our variable of books class. Now, in the same way, this method function is created. Now, it would return all the response of books controller. Now we have to store this method in a JSON object. So what our function would we have to use? We have to use the public function store method function. Okay. What basically store method will do? It will store the data. As simple. So here we will define this variable as book. Okay. Now this book will create a new object of the which class of the books class. So we have created an object of book class. We can also mention it in that like that also. Okay. So the better code will be like we can comment it, create an object of what? Books class. Object of class books. Now what after that? Insert new parameter, or we can say we are requesting the new parameter to store the data. So here we can write it as comment request new parameters to store data. So this is the commenting part which will be very useful for big projects. Okay, so that will help us to understand the upcoming or the newly joined coder also to check the code and what has been written. Okay, so now we will use this function and we will declare our name. Okay, so name, this would be in our database name, author, and published date. Okay, so for this, we have to again check the controller method, and in that controller, we are writing this book name, and then we have to define our other parameter. Now, with the request of JSON object, it will we will use a request method. So we have not defined any request method here in store. Okay, so what we will do? We will define a variable called a request here. Request in the request class we will define it as method as request. Okay, And in that request, we will define it as what parameter? The name parameter. Okay. So name, which is our student class name. Then in the same way, book author we will define, which is our in our database. So in the same way, we will write the request method, and that will return in a JSON response. So it would be author, and in the same way, dollar book publish date. Now next is publish date. So we will write it as publish underscore date. Okay. So that will help us to evaluate the score request and publish date. Okay. Publish date. Now dollar book then change. So now it will again return an object of JSON. So return response will not JSON. Okay. So it will return an object of response JSON. Okay. Now JSON object once we have defined here. Okay. Now we would be doing it in a form of a JSON response we have to return. So this JSON response will return by message. So we will give it a message here, and we would be mentioning in the response as books added. Okay. Okay. This we have added the books, and in the same way, now, so we'll close this brace now of the books class, and here also we can define it. Okay, so these are the parameters which we have defined in our function, and here we can manage it. Okay, so if the books gets added, if it would return the message, the books got added, and it will retrieve in a store method. Okay, now in the next method, what it will do, it will again check for the next class method. We will create another method called function show, because if you want to show the books, particular books, okay, we will use it by find method. Okay, so that also code we have to write. That will the logic also the same, that we will write in our this method only, which is our controller, which is a business logic. So here only we will write it, and we will execute our code. So here I will create a function, public function show. So that will help us to show the ID in our books column. Okay. So see here we can define a variable which we already defined, dollar book. Now from that book, it will be calling our class, which is called books, which is defined in our model. Okay. Now what we have to do, find dollar of ID. So this would be finding the relevant ID of the books. Okay. Some error is there, unexpected. Okay. So this is a function here, public functions index, and in store method is index method, store method is clearing here. Then again we have to define it. Let's say public function. Okay, now it's okay. Now there is no error. Okay. So now we have sorted all the errors. So now we will check for the probability of a store, which is a find ID. Okay. Now if there is an empty book, okay, or if we will get it another way, if there is no empty book, then what will happen? So that business logic will write here, that will return which kind of response. Again, we have to return the JSON response here, which is very much clear. Okay. Now JSON response will return here, and then we will write that code here for the JSON code. And else again, if we write else, then we will again return the JSON response. So we'll copy it in order to save our time. Okay. Now we have configured the controller, and we have also return the JSON response. Now if there is no book found, okay, then what response we have to return it? So that will again see here. We will return that response in a JSON format, and then we will write the code for it. If nothing gets retrieved, then we will give it a message here in the form of blocks message, then books not found. Okay, so this book not found here. Now again, we will return a 404 response if there is a server error from it. So this would be the response code from which it would be uh, adding it. Now else block will complete here. Now next thing would be, we have all declared the function here, and we are good for, so double brace will be there. And now we will again define another function, which is our update function. So we have to update it now, our method which we have defined. So the same function we'll do, we will use this function in the form of a request parameter. Just we will copy and paste it here. So here we'll just write update. Okay. So this update will, what will do, it will call the update function here, and it will again check for response now. Now here we have to define one more method, a variable called ID, because what we have to update, it will be updating it by means of the ID. Okay. Now we will start it over. Now same thing it would be done exist. Okay, so request method, it says that if the books where ID is there, if it books exist, then it would find that ID, and if that ID found, and then it will check for the if null request is null, means if book's name is not null, then it will return the book name, and otherwise it will return the that request from the if you update the request from the book source. In the same way, if the book's author is null, then it will return the book, means it does not exist, then it will return the, or the book author, and it does not exist on that part, then it will request it from the database. Similarly, same thing for the published date, and after that it will save. Now in the form of response, if you have to return, then it will return the 404 books updated and books not found. So these two kinds of response would return in a JSON format. So let's try writing our code here. If books were ID, comma, dollar ID, and exist, then it will return the form of code like we have seen here. So what it will write quickly? We will write it as book equal to books. Now this is our books class and find. This will be find method. Okay. Now in that find method, what it will find? The ID part only. So we will write it as find dollar ID. So this update and delete method we will see here in our next part where we can find it that how our data gets transferred here, how our data gets stored, not transferred. So the data gets stored and we will check in our next video the update and delete method. So till then, thank you.